you may or may not know that a contract exists. You purchased that property. Hopefully it was discovered in due diligence and you guys assumed that contract. But there's a lot of owners out there who don't even know if they have a contract or not. So where do you start? And that's the thing, is a lot of people, German, really just don't know where to start. They've never done this before. So we can guide them through. We've done literally thousands of contract negotiations, and we can guide them through the whole process from start to finish, because you'd be surprised too how many owners can get taken advantage of because you don't know what you don't know.
All right, guys, welcome again to another amazing episode. Today we have Todd Thorpe. He is a well-respected multifamily telecom and technology expert with over 30 years of industry experience. So he's worked with chartered company and he negotiates on behalf of investors to lower cable and telecom costs. As we talked in previous podcasts, when you reduce expenses, you increase NOI, therefore increase the value of your property. So smart operators are always looking for ways to reduce those expenses because it's going to increase the valuation of that asset. So we're going to dive a little bit more into his background, his expertise, and I'm sure any of this could apply to just about any asset in real estate. So, Todd, if we can, let's talk a little bit about just your background, this is I know people do it obviously, but it seems like a very niche job to do. So tell us a little bit how you got involved in it, and if at any point you were doing any real estate investing yourselves, and let's go from there.
Sure. Well, first of all, Oscar, German, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it, and getting in front of your listeners. I absolutely love multifamily. I love real estate. My dad was an architect, so I just the whole kind of building thing just has always fascinated me. Plus, he had his real estate license as well, so he practiced real estate when I was a kid. But I started out in the telecommunications business back in '89. Been in the cable industry for 30 years and spent about 20 of that in corporate roles, various corporate roles. But spent the last 20 of that with the executive leadership position with Charter on the multifamily side. So we dealt with multifamily sales, working directly with people like yourself, your listeners, multifamily investors, owners, operators, management companies, REITs, negotiating the telecom access agreements, bulk cable agreements on behalf of Charter. And now I do that as a consultant. So I'm really looked at as a full-time ancillary services department. Our clients either A, don't have the time to do what we do, or they just don't know how to do it. And they come to us asking questions. Well, what about this? And what's this? And, can I really make money at it? So, rather than having an internal department, which generally it's your ancillary services department, revenue management department, we're really kind of your in-house department, if you will. So saves companies a lot of money so they don't have to hire those internal resources, and they reach out to us.
Yeah.
So
are you mentioned you're a consultant, so you don't exactly work for telecom companies?
Nope.
Right?
No, we're pretty much agnostic or neutral when it comes to the actual providers. So let's say you guys own a multifamily property, 100-unit property. You would come to us and we would review all of the existing contracts you may or may not have on those properties. And then we would seek bids for you and go to the various cable and internet providers and go out and get bids from all of them and kind of use them against each other to give you the best offer to serve your property, and
Yeah.
may the best man win, kind of thing. Put them all in a cage and let them rumble now. But
No,
yeah,
I love it. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I love it because to me, your job is more like you're a broker.
exactly.
Because for example, in the lending industry, I prefer brokers over traditional lenders because they create competition
Yep.
amongst all the people they're pulling to get the best rate. So you're doing the same thing, which is interesting. As the more we dive into this industry, the more we find people like you who are specialized consultants, brokers that negotiate on behalf. And it's exciting to see that because you're not working for that company, you're working on behalf. And I imagine that company pays you a commission. Is that correct? Pays you your part?
No, well, not the company. So the owner would pay us
Gotcha.
usually a percentage of the door fee or the revenue that they collect. Or we also have a structure where owners pay us, just a retainer to work on their portfolio for them. We have several options for people, but we always do a free consultation. We offer that first and just give our clients, or before they become clients, kind of a sense of what we can do for them. And we don't charge anything for just doing a consultation with them. Just like if you were going to go to an attorney, or hire an accountant or something, just to kind of give you a sense of what it is you could possibly get.
Yeah. German, what you got?
Oh, so I think I know the answer to this, but I'm guessing that the benefit of hiring somebody like you to bring these services is the fact that you already have the network established and the relationship with those companies and the key players on those companies, or the decision makers on those companies, and you can make the process faster.
Yeah, absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth, pretty
Oh,
much.
okay, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Literally, that's exactly what we would do, is because we can speed the process up. We have all of the existing relationships. So imagine you have a property, you may or may not know that a contract exists. You purchased that property. Hopefully it was discovered in due diligence and you guys assumed that contract. But there's a lot of owners out there who don't even know if they have a contract or not. So where do you start? And that's the thing, is a lot of people, German, really just don't know where to start. They've never done this before. So we can guide them through. We've done literally thousands of contract negotiations, and we can guide them through the whole process from start to finish. Because you'd be surprised too how many owners can get taken advantage of, because
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what to ask. There's a lot of components to it. Getting exclusive, what are you going to give the provider? Exclusive wiring rights. And there's different types of wiring rights. Are you going to give them exclusive marketing? Should I give them any of that? If I do, what am I expected to get in return from the provider? And if you don't know what to ask for, the provider is not going to go out of their way to tell you. And trust me, I used to work for the provider, so I know how it works. I've been on the inside. So there are a lot of other consultants out there. Obviously, we're not the only consultant who does this, but there really aren't that many who have worked for the cable providers like we have, who understand the way they think. And not just that, we know who to go to, and because we've made all of those connections and have all of those relationships. We know who the key providers are. Most likely, you're going to have one or two main providers in any municipality, in any city, but then there are other providers who can also serve your property, and we know how to look for those opportunities for you.
No, that's pretty cool. So let me ask you this: as you've done this for such a long time, what is one of those things that well, not you, but in when you were working with a provider, you would look at that maybe people didn't pay attention. You mentioned a few there, but what was like the biggest one that you saw that owners just did not pay attention to?
Compensation. So there's essentially four, and I can give your listeners, there's essentially four things that they should be. I mean, there's a lot, but four main things that they should be looking for in compensation that they should be getting from the provider. And if they don't know these things, so listeners, get out a pen and paper. So write these down. Here's going to give you four free things that you should be looking for, right? That you could do this on your own. You don't even need to hire us. Is the very first one is what are called door fees. And those are one-time upfront payments that the provider will pay you. And they can be as little as, $50 a door. And we've negotiated them over $300-400 a door. So you can, see how quickly, especially if you have a large portfolio, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars in door fee money. And that's just a one-time payment that you, the owner, would receive from the provider. And in exchange for you're going to grant that provider, say, maybe exclusive use of the inside coax wiring in the property. And maybe you'll give them exclusive marketing rights at the property, right?
Yeah.
The leasing office will market the provider exclusively versus any other provider. So that's the very first thing. So those are door fee payments, and those are one-time payments. And by the way, because I know a lot of investors, they may hold a property for 3 or 5 years and then they'll turn that property. The door fee, you don't have to share with the buyer of the property. You get to keep that door fee. You don't have to share any of that money with the person who's going to buy the property and then assume that contract. So that's really important too.
Nice.
The second way is what's called revenue share. And that is an ongoing generally quarterly payment from the provider. And what that is a percentage of the gross revenue that the provider is getting on the property. So let's use AT&T, for example. They're the provider on the property. They will pay you a quarterly percentage of the gross revenue that they're getting from all the tenants on the property. And they'll send you a check, much like your investors receive a residual check for the investment, a dividend, or, a profit share. It's the same concept, literally the same concept. And then you get that money. It's not as lucrative, but it's still valuable, and you'll get that. Yeah. I mean, every little bit helps, and that helps to increase the NOI. So over the term of the agreement, you will get that revenue share. So even if you do a say you do a 7-year agreement, you could be looking at, $500 a quarter, $1,000 a year. You add that up, that's extra money that goes into your pocket. Then the third is, while it's not a direct payment, cash payment like revenue share and door fees, are courtesy services. And again, if as an owner, if you're not thinking to ask these questions and ask for this, the providers, they're going to leave that on the table. They're not going to just offer it to you. So what that is like free cable and internet for you to use at the property. Say you have a maintenance person who lives on site, and let's say as part of their benefits package, maybe you pay their cable bill, or you have a leasing manager, or you have a common room somewhere.
Yeah.
You want to have a free internet account or a free cable account. Maybe you have a TV in like a common room where you got a pool table where people can kind of gather around. Put a TV up on the wall or in a fitness room. And you should be negotiating free cable services to be used as amenities throughout your property. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you're paying the cable bill and it's $500 a month for various services because it gets expensive, right? Now you're pocketing that money as well. And then the fourth way is through bulk cable and internet services. So what that means is it's the same thing as, remember when toilet paper was a shortage, right? You go to Costco or Sam's Club and you buy up toilet paper in bulk, coffee and all this. It's the same, but you're getting it really cheap. It's the same concept. You, the owner, are buying cable and or internet from the provider at a really cheap rate because you're buying it in bulk.
Yeah.
So if you have a 100-unit property, you're going to get maybe cable and internet for $40 a unit. So you're going to write a check for $4,000 to the cable company. But then you, as the owner, turn around and mark that up, say $20, $30, $40. So then you charge the resident $80.
Yeah.
You keep
difference.
$40, right? And then now you make money off of it that way by charging an amenity fee. And then you can advertise free cable, free internet.
Yeah, because it comes included in the in the rent in the unit.
Yeah, but if you don't know to be asking any of those.
Yeah, no, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't. I wouldn't know.
I have my expertise. I have two questions, Todd. When or how? What size of unit or property does it make sense? One, and the other one is the different packages. Can you give us like a scenario where it makes sense to buy bulk instead of doing the per unit?
Two very good questions. So typically, anything that is over 50 units and above is where all of this starts to make sense. And there are actually some of the providers who won't even write a contract on anything that's under 50 units. There's some providers who won't write anything on anything under 20 units. They just won't mess with it because it's too small for them. So once you get beyond 50, it starts to make sense. When you get over 100 units, yeah, for sure. Those are properties that you really, and the asset class, the class type doesn't really matter either. You could have a C property or you could have an A property and they're both 150 units. You still want to do a contract with the cable provider. Yeah. So it's not just asset class that is something that you would want to leave out. Okay. So that's really important. Now, the type of services that are available on those types of properties, for internet, like for bulk, generally any type of property, but especially mobile home parks, student housing, traditional apartments, senior living, and even in some cases, campgrounds, RV parks, marinas are considered multifamily by the cable and provider definition. They consider those multifamily. So it's not just traditional apartments that most of the providers define as multifamily. Generally, all of them are really good for bulk cable and internet, especially because that's what everybody wants. Mm-hmm. You're probably looking at 80% of the resident population is going to get internet service when they move into an apartment. So if you offer it as a bulk amenity, you're actually kind of looked at as as the king property because everybody's going to take it anyway, right?
Yeah.
So there really isn't an asset class that I guess is excluded, German, but the asset classes that are really hot is student housing, senior properties, and then like your mobile home parks, your campgrounds, RV parks are very popular when it comes to internet service.
Yeah. So that was good. That's
It,
pretty
it
question.
really it really depends on also what the owner's kind of business model is. There are some owners that just say, you know what, I don't want to do bulk. I don't like it. It's a hassle. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to pay the cable company. I don't want to be on the hook for that. They don't want any part of it. And they're just adamant about it. And then there are other providers out there who are ownership groups who absolutely love it. It's huge, and all of their properties are bulk.
No, that's pretty cool, man. No, that was a great explanation. So I have two follow-up questions with that. So, and I just want to clarify first. So when we talk about we should always negotiate with the provider, right?
Yep.
And we essentially I see it for two things. One, either we're making a bulk contract where the operator is taking on the contract and then passing on the expense through rent to the tenant, the resident, right? The other one I see is either they're given the rights to the copper and the assets and to be the first marketing company when a tenant moves in, but not necessarily. And then the owner gets a kickback for a commission, right?
Yep.
So not necessarily two different models, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Making sure I understood that. So then my second part to that question is, if you do a kickback portion of it, it's not necessarily that you're just creating one telecommunication company for your asset. You're just making it the primary one that is there, or because I guess
correct.
That's my gripe with telecommunication companies. I see monopolies there. Like I've lived all over the country.
Right.
And I know Verizon's here in Virginia. In California, it was Xfinity. I mean, it drives me nuts. I want competition so that the prices go down, right? So it's like they all have an agreement that I have this region, you have this region,
Yep.
I have this region, right? And I've lived in the East Coast, I've lived in the West Coast, I lived in North Dakota for a while. And like North Dakota was I forget what it was, but it was a smaller company that is nowhere else in the country. But yeah, that was always my gripe. So so no, it's not like that, correct?
Well, it is. So
it is.
Yeah. So primarily every city, every area will have a main cable company. So you're not going to see like Charter and Comcast really competing together because of the way their footprint is. So the main cable providers you're not going to see, and even the smaller ones like WOW and CenturyLink and Frontier, you're only going to have one or two dominant cable providers. Frontier. Yep. You're only going to have one or two dominant cable providers in a market. And that's your traditional cable when you think of cable, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're also going to have a phone company. You're going to have AT&T or you're going to have Verizon. And again, that depends on where you live. And yeah, they have a monopoly in the sense that they're the only providers in that general area. But depending on what you're looking for, you do have choice. And if you're looking for bulk service, there are other providers out there who can come in and serve the property if you're looking for bulk, because that's going to be more lucrative for them to actually extend or build their service or put in infrastructure into the property. But from just a pure retail standpoint, generally you're only going to have like two maybe three cable providers, and then you'll have one of the main phone providers in an
Gotcha.
area. And it gets there's definitely more choice in more metropolitan areas, the bigger the
Yeah.
community. But in your rural markets, you're probably only going to have one or two. But that doesn't mean you still don't want to negotiate a solid agreement with the provider, because at a minimum, your asset is private property, and they should not be providing service or accessing your residence to provide service. Because think about it, they're making money and you're allowing them to be on the property,
Yeah.
but you should at least negotiate an agreement with them that gives them the legal right to be there, because you have the authority to tell them to leave. You're probably not going to do that because you want your tenants to have
Yeah.
a provider, and you don't want to get into a real, you don't want to have a contentious relationship with the provider. You want to have a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
So that's what I always tell my clients is start with a good relationship with the local provider. Don't look at each other as enemies. They're trying to make a living. You're trying to make a living. Work together, partner together. They should adhere to certain standards. Make sure they're not making a mess of your property and stringing wires all over the place.
Yeah.
Let's get some of that cleaned up if you're going to provide service. If you're going to be here on my property and provide service, then you need to behave a certain way.
And you know what? That's a great point, because cable management is huge when it comes to just the organization and the infrastructure of an asset, right? Over the
Exactly.
years, I mean, you don't want to do that as an owner. And if you don't do it over a period of years, I mean, that's going to get messy. So having these companies recurrently update them and do them and all that is a benefit to the owner as well when it comes to expenses. That's not cheap. Cable management is not cheap.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can spend a lot of your time or your leasing staff's time dealing with all of this on an ongoing basis. But if you establish a relationship up front, and if you have a contract that dictates what the cable operator is obligated to do, but also what you're going to do, because the contract is a two-way street. Now you guys have a really clear understanding of what the partnership is supposed to look like and what each party is going to be responsible for. You're going to give them access to your property in exchange for them paying you, and you're going to give them certain rights to be there. But you do hold the purse strings. You do have the legal right to tell a provider to leave. And a lot of owners don't know that. They think that the cable company has the right to be there, and that's not true.
No, I agree. I mean, legally it's your property, right? I
Yep.
mean, and I'm glad we talked to you about this because it's good to know, absolutely as we scale in our adventure here. But when we talk about, the relationship that you should have, I personally, without knowing the information you just gave me, getting a kickback and commission is a plus, as a bonus would be to me. My main thing would be, hey, how can we make it so that you keep my expenses low when it comes to infrastructure? I think that's more important from my aspect, because looking at it long term, like I'm telling you, man, we in Air Force, I oversee guys that do cable management. I've overseen it in the Middle East and who throw fiber out. And I mean, over the lifetime of that stuff, it's ridiculous how much it costs, cable management and servers and wiring through the wall. That is a lot of work, especially if years down the line you got to take down walls to replace it or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. The money, the commission is like a nice thing, I would say, but the maintenance, the maintaining of it is the road juice there. I don't know if you agree with that, Todd.
I do, absolutely, because Once the cable goes in, then now it's an asset and it's a fixture of your property.
Yeah.
And it's important to make sure. So the provider is responsible for maintaining the infrastructure, the internal wiring during the term of the agreement.
Yeah. Same.
The ownership does not transfer over, or the ownership of that wiring is not the provider's. The ownership of that wiring stays with the owner of the property.
Yeah. But they maintain it. So,
but they are responsible for maintaining it during the term of the agreement. So if a cable goes bad, they're supposed to replace it. But more importantly, not just replace it and then string a cable on the outside of the building through the window and make a mess of your property. They're supposed to do it in a professional manner that
to a certain grade. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be just like your house. If the cable provider came out and all of a sudden, they just start stringing lines and or the dish company just starts, stringing lines all over, you'd be like, wait a minute, time out here. You can't just do that.
Yeah.
A multifamily asset, a $1 million asset should also be treated the same way. Yeah. Just because it has 100 units doesn't make it any different. But the problem is a lot of owners are so busy, they're just not there, and they don't live there. Maybe they don't even have any on-site management. So a lot of this is going on and they don't even see it.
Yeah.
Maybe the property management is not, kind of keeping up with it either. And then things just go. And then after 10 years of just letting it go, the property's a mess.
Yeah. And, I personally would, now that I know there's so much you can negotiate on, I would even let go of the commission and say, hey, how about you don't give me a kickback, but instead every so often, every certain years, you upgrade because technology is only going to get better, right? You upgrade
absolutely
my internals to fiber.
Oscar just stole my question. I was going to say, what happens when you want to upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could agree that hey, like every 3 years, if we have a new fiber that comes out that's better or whatever, I want this put in, because Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, but most, for example, fiber, I remember Verizon Fios, when they started doing Fios, it was super fast, but the speed would stop once it hit a house if that house did not have the capacity to handle those speeds. Right. So there was no point of getting Fios if your house could not handle it.
It was pointless. Yes.
It was pointless. Right. So now, I mean, it's the same thing. So if you can upgrade a whole asset and the internals are up to date, then your property is even better.
And that's absolutely true. You can forego compensation in exchange for saying, I want the internal wiring upgraded now because it's a mess. My residents are complaining that the internet, they keep getting kicked off and their internet's terrible and their internet's slow and, the wiring is bad. So, you replace some of the inside, not rewire the whole building necessarily, because that could get very costly, but at least replace and maintain and repair some of the existing wiring, and I'll forego the door fee compensation, let's say. Yeah. And you bring up a very good point. The whole thing is, whether you hire somebody like us to do it for you or you learn on your own, if you don't know any of this, you're just going to just assume that, okay, well, it's just the way it is. We just got to let it go. And it shouldn't be that way. You should arm yourself with information. And, by having me on here, and again, thank you so much, and giving your listeners some things that they can take away with. Yeah, now they might have, a chance to negotiate a better agreement the next time they're faced with that. And that's the thing I would tell your listeners, number one, go to your file cabinet, pull all of your contracts out, look them over, kind of start to digest that and see what's in there. When are they getting ready to expire? And guess what? You open up that file drawer and maybe it's empty. Maybe you don't even have any contracts.
maybe you didn't get any in the turnover, right? So, and it
Exactly.
happens, right? You get
Oh
a
yeah.
mom and pop owner, and you're dead in the water. But I would definitely recommend anyone, and this is what I plan to do in the future with my brother, if we when we get into higher assets, is, hey Todd, have the same conversation we just had, literally, and say, hey, let's critically think, what's the best option? Do we forego this to improve the cabling, or this or that? I mean, I wouldn't know unless, to the point I know now, unless you came on here and gave us, the insight that you have for 30 years in the telecom industry, which is huge, right? I don't know, and I'm sure there's like a whole other section that I still don't know because we haven't thought through everything yet. But
Well, it's just like investing, multifamily investing. Mentoring people and teaching them how to invest and educating them that it's extremely lucrative. There's a lot of tax benefits. There's a lot of things, and if you don't know to ask these things,
yeah,
you're scared and you never get into investing, real estate investing.
yeah,
Telecom negotiation is the same thing. If you don't know to ask these questions and you're just left in the dark,
mm-hmm.
you're out there. So we're there as an advisor for your listeners to at
Yeah,
least give them a free consultation, if nothing else.
And to look at it from a different perspective, and we talk about it, in different venues and podcasts and everything that we do, is you build your team,
Yep.
and it's part of the team. It's like, hey, we're gonna bring another component to this
Yeah.
investment, and this person is gonna be able to bring, a good service to our tenants, and it also increase our NOI,
yeah.
reduce our expenses, and make it a better investment. So it's just bringing another person to the team.
It's pretty cool to see because,
Yeah.
as you scale, you can negotiate just about anything, with whether it's telecom or with energy as well. I mean, there's different energy providers. So we haven't had them on the show yet, but I'm sure there's energy brokers out there. I've met some for solar panels, um, that they negotiate for to put them on top of multifamily properties or industrial, and they kick it back
Wait,
to you.
waste hauling too. There's
Oh
there's
yeah,
consultants, and I know a really good one out there. His name is Tyler Brunson. If I can give him a plug,
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
you can look him up on LinkedIn. Waste Consultants, I think, is the name of the company, but Tyler Brunson, and that's what he does. Very similar to what we do, but he does your waste hauling agreements, and he evaluates them, and then sees where he can save you money, because in a lot of cases you're overpaying to have your garbage hauled away.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
And no, and if you
all,
can connect us, man, yeah, we would love to dig into that too, right? All these experts, and
yeah, and you should
everyone
have him
has their
on your show. We had him on our
yeah,
podcast. He's
Yeah,
he's a fantastic resource.
yeah,
nice.
absolutely. No, that'd be
Now,
awesome.
what markets or what regions do you focus on?
All, yeah, the entire United States.
Nice.
We have clients all over the United States.
That's good to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's
if
great.
the listeners are listening to it, it's like, okay, what do you work? That's good. Now, and one last question that I have, I'm just curious, and I'm pretty sure some of our listeners are too, especially the younger guys. Um, what trends do you see right now in regards to cable versus internet? I know I have internet. I haven't had cable last 10 years probably.
Yeah.
Um, is there a way to negotiate to where it's like, well, I just want, because I don't want to waste that asset or whatever it's called, putting the internet in my properties when most
Mhm.
people just use internet. Do you see
Yeah.
that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The providers typically, they shied away from doing internet only bulk deals because they wanted to put video in there as well. A lot of that has to do with counting subscriber numbers for Wall Street and their stock prices, but really traditional cable is going away.
Mm-hmm.
It's changing, and it's really all streaming services now, but everybody has to have internet of some kind. Yeah, you have your cell service, you got your 4G LTE, soon to be 5G service that's going to be everywhere. But internet is not going away, not anytime soon.
Yeah.
So that is a huge trend. Putting in internet and managed Wi-Fi systems in a lot of large properties, 200, 300, 400 unit plus properties, but also smart technology. And even in your smaller properties, the 50 to 100 unit properties. So smart technology like smart locks, water detection systems, water leak detection systems, surveillance, camera security, smart lights. A lot of properties are starting to go that way. And there are companies out there, and I can put your listeners in touch with, who do it with just a hub that has a 5G chip in it. So you don't even need internet. It's like literally having a cell phone, and it's a hub that goes inside a unit. And then that hub can control all of the smart devices, smart thermostats and all that.
Everything.
That's where we're starting to see it's becoming the Jetsons. I posted something on LinkedIn, I think yesterday, about that. That's kind of where it's headed. It's all, sophistication, man.
Yeah. Nice. And the thing is that, people have to change as time and technology changes. So you cannot stay on cable. Yeah, like I said, internet, I know, is there to stay, because 4G, 5G is not reliable in some areas. Inside some buildings, sometimes you might have 5G,
Right.
but if it doesn't work indoors, you're gonna need internet. So yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no true 5G yet, but
Right.
there's
Yeah.
But
it's coming.
My hope is that with everything on the internet, Comcast dies. I just don't like Comcast. I have a gripe against them. So
They gotta shut down our podcast, man.
I know.
Yeah, right. You got to be careful.
I have Verizon Files. So. Yeah, but yeah, no, Todd, thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming on, and could you tell the listeners where they could find you and tell them about your podcast and the whole thing?
Yeah. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So just look up my profile. It kind of tells what we do. I post content daily on LinkedIn. So put out a lot of information. And then, we host a podcast. It's called MDU Nation. And we put out a show every Monday on Apple, Google, Podbean, and Spotify. And our podcast is geared towards the multifamily industry as a whole. So we cover everything from technology, like we just talked about, to legal, investing, sales, marketing, a little bit of everything.
Wow. No, that's awesome. I imagine you bring out some great experts as well. But all right, anything else, German? Or
No, man, I'm glad
for coming on, and it was great.
I just requested on LinkedIn, so everybody that's listening and watching us, just go and link in with Todd.
There we go, man.
All right,
I had a blast, guys. This is great.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
you,
man.
bro.
Thank you for coming on.